Kenny Jameson here. It's January 22nd, 2014. And I have some questions for society, for the general public, as a rule. Not necessarily people that work for the government. And I'm talking about school teachers, firemen, policemen, all at your local level. Because they're already working, they have to protect their own self. Make sure their paycheck's cash, right? My problem is really with a municipality, with a city, and the blackmail that the state of Ohio, because that's the city in Warren, Ohio, and blackmails the city with money to get them to do what they want them to do. They call it a grant. Yeah, they granted them money, but then they dictate to them what to do with it. And the federal government does it to the states also. They allocate money to the state, and then they tell them what they have to do with it. And the state's like, oh, that's kind of against our Constitution. And they're like, you don't want the money? It's like, well, we'll just pass emergency legislation so it's all okay. They can change the rules anytime they want. They do it daily. Daily they revise codes to make it fit, because they're all lawyers. Because they know that someone out there is going to have old school, basic Constitution values, Bill of Rights values, and anybody with common sense can see where they've trumped them, where they've squashed them, where they've overrode them. Living in the United States was basic for years. Very basic. It's not anymore. It's got become complex, and the people call it, well, you get lost in the bureaucracy. And it's like, yeah, it's just thievery is what it gets down to. It's just ways that the government, and I'm talking about the court system, whether it be federal, state, county, or city, the way these sharks can confiscate money, how they can accumulate fine money, how they can seize property and keep it or sell it. Sometimes it's really within a gray area of the law, as they say. You know, they impound your car. You don't have the money to get it out. They've seized your car. I mean, the rich, they pay their way out. It's extortion, however you want to say it. I'll use some strong words here. My main dilemma is within Warren, Ohio, and how many houses that the city has accumulated. And then we could take it a next step further, how many houses the county has accumulated. Now, common sense tells us there's property taxes, and that 80% of that pays for the schools. And when property taxes started, it was a good system. They weren't extorting money out for other programs that actually competed against the free enterprise system. Now, they could have their own paving trucks, the county, and pave roads. That's what taxes are for. You know, that's all. Lots of it's all good. I'm concentrating on what they are using money for that's over and above, where they can give a contract to somebody they know, and it states it right in the Trumbull County contract that there's no rebates allowed, no kickbacks. They had to put it in writing. Because if it's not in writing, then you can't bring it up in court. Go, look, you can't get any rebates here. Kickbacks, same thing. Who got the contract? Wow. Always an issue. It's got to be a licensed, bonded, permitted. He's got to give, to get a contract, you got to give a lot of money back through legal chains. You have to buy a permit. You got to buy a licensure. Those are all small little kickbacks. But people go, well, it's a necessary evil, and it is. Insurance. So if they mess up, the city has someone to go back against it. It's the same in the private sector. All that is normal. I'm after normalness here, folks. Old school normalness. Well, it turns out now that they've passed a law a few years ago that a county's allowed to start a land bank. They're allowed to confiscate people's properties, and the majority of that was for bank-owned properties. If the bank owned it, it would take them 6 months to a year to get it through court so they could take possession of that property and even get it on the market to resell it. That was the old school normal. It gave the people ample time if they did get a job, they could make up their back payments, they could get their house back. That's why part of the reason that they drugged their feet, the process of foreclosing on a house took so long, because that's a man's house. I mean, especially if he's paid on it for 5 or 10 years and he's redid the kitchen in the meantime, and and now he's lost his job and he had to choose between food and mortgage. Tried to keep eating, spent the mortgage money on gas money out looking for a job that didn't exist. There was logic behind all of that. This new land bank, I don't know if there's logic or not, where the county can foreclose on a house and then gift it to a private corporation. That's right, gift it to them. It saves on the sheriff's sale. And it's like, wait a minute. Who paid the back property taxes? Did you accomplish the mission of collecting the property taxes? Well, they get the house back on the market, then they can start paying. And it's like, wait a minute here. Let's think this through. They re-gift your house to a private corporation. They get to sell the house or tear it down, whatever they want to do. They end up with the lot. There's money granted. They get money if they want to tear it down. They could get more federal money or state money to tear it down. So they're in a win-win situation, a private corporation. They sell the house for $10,000, $20,000. Who gets the money? Well, they get to keep it because it's the cost of maintaining the property. Are you kidding me or what, folks? This is what's going on to me. This is getting right down to the nitty-gritty here of follow the money. Now, when you break it down to the city level, somehow or another, they ended up with over 100 houses at the city level, City of Warren. They were trying to manage them. Finally, the auditor that was keeping the books for them, they just gifted them to him, basically. The city still owned them. But if he could collect in the rents and put the money back into the houses, I think he was supposed to give the excess money back to the city. He was the auditor. Well, it turned around and he ended up buying several hundred more houses and starting another corporation. And that turned into a tax burden, so he started another corporation, put half of them in that. Before you know it, the guy's ended up with 5 different corporations. Mixing the money. He's an accountant, man. He was the city auditor. The guy is, you can't take that away from him. The man knows how to do books. He started other projects outside the county, so I read here in the paper, collected in $22 million in outside investments from local people there. Now he's on a roll. In the meantime, he wasn't able to pay the county. How much was it? $200,000, $175,000 in back taxes. Because anybody that owns a property knows that you can fall behind. You can borrow money from the county at 5%. It's an unwritten loan. Though there's a penalty of 5%, but you can, if you fall on hard times, they're not going to take food out of your mouth to support the schools. You can let your property taxes go for several years until you get back on your feet and you're eating and you're able to support the schools. Even if you don't have kids in school, even if that house is vacant and there's nobody from that property is using any county services whatsoever. Now, in the city of Warren, if you called the Trumbull County Sheriff's Department, the first thing they would tell you, and I'm going back a few years now, is that they do with everything in the county except for in the city of Warren. Now, since later years, 2 years, 3 years ago, the city got denied federal grant money for the second and third wave. They merged. They became partners with the county so they could get their hands on some of the county's grant money. The county did their first wave of, it was called neighborhood stabilization. The housing czar came up with this. Hundreds of billions of dollars they passed out around the country to stabilize neighborhoods. 90% of the money was supposed to go for rehabilitation for people that were trying to hang on and couldn't keep the exterior of the house up pleasant, so it devalued the neighborhood. And they all got waivers on that. Wave that law goodbye. Bye, waivers. There's a legal term for you. That means the law that's written doesn't exist. They've got a waiver. They're immune. They don't have to do it the way it was intended. They ran it back through and said, can we just tear down all these houses with that money? Or we'll tell the people we're going to tear them down. Now, there is a lot of houses that need tore down. The windows are busted out, the floors are rotted, or they've been burnt out. They're unsalvageable. If you fix the house up like they did there on the one project in Warren, they put $400,000 in a house, historical, I guess, maybe, or something. At the end, it was worth $122,000. They lost $300,000 on restoring a property. Now, that money just didn't vaporize. Somebody got that money. So that was something that needed to be looked into. From there, they said, oh, we can't afford to rehabilitate them. It costs too much. Well, it depends on who you hire and the quality of what the materials they use, I guess. I don't know. This grant money, as long as you have receipts, you could spend anywhere you want. The Inspector General does not have time or resources to go out and inspect every project. So they basically paper guys again. They go and if they have paperwork for their projects that they spent the money appropriately, all well and good. My main problem is due process. After they've shut me down, this is a methodical plan from city workers that elevates up the county to methodically take more houses, to steal them, put you different ways of running you out of town, write you code violations that don't exist over their realm of practice. An electrician is supposed to write electrical code violations, in which the city has an electrical inspector. I had to get mine upgraded, not a problem. I had to do take the doolies out of the bathroom because you're not allowed any carpeting in the bathroom. The tenants put them back in there and put me in violation. It's like, what? It's discouraging being a landlord. I could handle it. I could handle the tenants. I rented to basically the lower end of society, the working poor, Walmart, nurses' aides, $400 a month utilities paid, $100 a week. They could afford that. They're grossing $400 a week. They're bringing home $250. $100 of that's got to go to paying their rent, and then they try to operate a car and pay car insurance and try to be legal citizens. A lot of them didn't operate a car. That's all right too. They don't have to. You're not allowed to rent to them. That's the city wants to rent to them so they can control them. So they can, because they've got them on Section 8, county assistance for housing. They've got them on food stamps, and now they can dictate the way they live. They're only allowed a certain quality of couch, or where'd you get that money from? They have total control of them that way. Sad reality here, folks. Kenny Jameson losing my rental properties to the county now instead of the city. They filed charges 2 weeks before the county court dismissed my case and said that the city workers are exempt, immune from prosecution. City health department workers and county, the guy that does the grant money, you can't take them to court. They're immune. Reality. Now they're skipping steps on the foreclosures thing. Mine's going a lot faster than any bank was. So I've got to appeal it, and this has been going on for 10 years now. Tried to shut me down from day one. Craziness. I did leave town. I had to for my own safety. Thanks for listening. I'll get back with you on more. Bye.